Well, what can I say? Arsenal have just been defeated at home to West Ham, went down to 10 men. West Ham won, Arsenal nil. Turkish, I know it's almost a bit of a silly question, but was this the day that everything just ended?
I'm going to go back to the summer transfer window again. Any of those days in the last 2-3 weeks was ultimately the day it all ended. But people are bored of that. People don't seem to understand that. You want me to talk about now? I mean, look at the position we're in as a team. Our attack is just, ripped to shreds through injuries, but at the same time, pre-injury, our attack had a problem. We tend to forget that now, overlook that now, or do our best to cope with it by ignoring the fact that before December 21st, when Saka got injured, we needed a striker, potentially a winger. Then Saka gets injured and Jesus gets injured and Martinelli gets injured and they don't move. Imagine that. 3 more man down and you don't move. That's, I could say February the 3rd is ultimately where it ended, because there was still a chance. There was still a chance for us to bring someone in, a couple of bodies in. You look at the market, you look at a couple of loan names that have went, here or there in January, and you think, well, we could have done with one of those. And that's at no cost, no obligation, nothing. So there's no excuse there about right player, right body. Because right now, have we got the right players and the right bodies? Does it seem so? It doesn't seem so to me. But that's more, media drivel that we're going to be fed over and over again, because ultimately, I've been here before. It's not the first time Arsenal have shown a lack of ambition when nearly over the line or potentially able to get over the line. It won't be the last time either. But yeah, I mean, today is ultimately the day where even if you was one of the most optimistic fans, you've got to say we ain't winning it. And you've also got to say, looking at the Champions League, if we get past PSV, and it's a big if, Real Atletico with this side, even then people might cope with it. Martinelli and Saka's back. Don't forget, whilst we had Martinelli and Saka, we had problems in attack. Why? Because partly the problem is in midfield. But that gets overlooked now because the problem in attack is so in your face. But the midfield ain't helping themselves either. We've got our strongest midfield. I asked on the watch along, which one of our 10s, 8s or 6s are injured? None. But Zinchenko comes on in midfield for the first time in an Arsenal shirt. He comes on in midfield. None of our midfielders are injured. We're struggling to create, and Zinchenko comes on. Make that make sense. Our midfield is not at the required level either. Because sometimes you look at the attack this season in games and you think, look at that, Havertz missing chances, or Martinelli missing chances. But sometimes we've looked at games, equally so I'd say, and said, we don't create enough chances. We've barely had a chance in this game. So the midfield is also a problem. What, in phase 5 or year 5 or year 7 from Be Excited? I'm going to keep on going back to these milestones, because at the end of the day, a man can't say be excited in 2019 or whenever it was, and 6 years later, gone quiet now, midway through the season, where we was all excited going into it in terms of 2 back-to-back title challenges. Let's get over the line now. City fall off because, some might say expected, but you also look at their transfer dealings, some could blame that as well. But they fall off, and we're not primed to capitalise because the club didn't put us in a position to be primed to capitalise. We had a great injury record last season. You cannot rely on that again. That's rare in football, to have most of your star players fit for the season. It's rare. So the season we had last season, who at the club looked at it and said, well, did you see that? We've got to do it again. Saka's a machine. Havertz is a machine. This person's a machine. That person's a machine. Yeah, machine gone bust. We've seen it this season, player after player for us down, leaving us in ultimately a worse position. But again, the injuries are papering over the original cracks, which were all there pre-injuries. And then you can talk about players, Odegaard again today, captain, just hiding. There was one moment that really pissed me off in that game. Early in the second half, Ranieri, Trossard into space. There was space for Odegaard to run into. He was the only man within 30 yards of Trossard. So he ran into the space, collect the ball. He ran off into the distance. He literally ran off into the distance like a horse that's just been freed into the wilderness. I don't know where the hell he was going. And that sums him up. Not only this game, but I think a lot of this season. Because I mentioned it before, when Odegaard's out, Saka was still stepping up. We were still getting results, difficult games. Let's not forget the first fight, the start of the season. Saka was still, getting us out of sticky situations, right? And we held Odegaard to a similar stature, But since Saka's been out, Odegaard has... I don't look at any game where I say Odegaard won us that game. That's abysmal. I'm not saying that's abysmal for a captain, which you can argue, yes. It's also abysmal for a player of his quality to hide, to want to always go and collect the ball in comfy positions in and around the defence where teams are sitting off us and making the easy balls, but not being there when you need to be there. Again. And I'm talking about him. The whole team, again, poor. And ultimately, you look at Arteta and think, over the last 2 years, you've made us a more rigid side, structured side, a side that took it to game week 38 last season. But in Arteta's words, you maximise every window or you fall behind. And we haven't maximised the last 3, 2, 1. And here we are.
Yeah, I mean, I'm struggling to come to terms with what happened today, because going into today, I sensed that there was a degree of optimism that was based on Liverpool not looking at their best in recent games.
That was based on some bullshit.
No, but hear me out.
No, but hear me out. Because I know that's based on some bullshit, Laurie. We didn't play on Wednesday. Liverpool played. They dropped points. Let's go, believe. Come on. The ownership have left us in a position where it's clear as day they're happy with just making Champions League again. It's clear as day we're not going to win anything this season. So getting amped off Liverpool, what are we going to do then? Tomorrow, if City go and draw or win, are we going to be amped Monday morning then? It's just delusion at this point.
Yeah, but I think the point I was trying to make is coming into this game, I did sense a degree of optimism, and I'll tell you why that was. We've spoken about Liverpool. They dropped some points. They'd not looked at their best. There was the Champions League draw, which a lot of people say, listen, it was quite a favourable draw for Arsenal. So yesterday, chatting to fans, even this morning, there seemed to be a little bit of energy about the place. People were predicting if we beat West Ham, go into the Forest game. But today, right from the start, we were flat. We lacked energy. We lacked control. Okay, we had a lot of the ball, but it wasn't necessarily going anywhere. And like you said yourself, Turkish, key players didn't perform. But no one performed. I can't name a single player today that played well.
Nor can I. Nor can I. And then
I'm struggling to work out how that is, because, okay, you mentioned Odegaard, and I'm trying my hardest not to scapegoat Odegaard because of a couple of things. One, I like him as a person, as a player. We know, as you said, he's very technically gifted, but he, was clearly well below par today. But that being said, where were the other guys? There's some really good players in this team, and there was no one that showed today. So I'm struggling to come to terms with it. I'm struggling to come up with explanations as to how everybody could just look so bad today.
And that's where I say it ultimately comes down to Arteta and his management of the side as well, because we was a free-flowing side a few years ago. He made us more rigid, as I mentioned. We challenged until game week 38, and then we get a bit more rigid on top of a transfer window that's nowhere near the required level. Teams figure things out season on season. The more they play you, the more they figure out the threats. That's why Havertz might have been banging for the last 6 months of last season. But if you don't add around the Havertz, then the focus more being on him, it's easy to mark him out. Or Saka a couple of years ago when he started being double teamed on. It's not easy to mark him out because he's excelled as a player and progressed. But you're right. This is West Ham at home. So even with the injuries we had, I predicted 2-1 win. God knows where the 2 goals were going to come from. And ultimately, we didn't even get 1. Yeah. But I thought, you know what? We should get the job done. There should be a bit of, more belief behind them, considering it is a chance for them to, and by them, I mean the players here, the manager here, to cut it down to 5 points before they go Etihad, But was there any fight? Football has turned more into, especially with managers like Mikel, has turned more into systems, instruction, more than ever. And I've only come to understand it recently. That plays some part in this question I'm going to ask. But where's the fight? Yeah. Where is the fight? Where you throw all the fucking instructions out of the window and you say, maybe huddle up if you need to, because they've huddled up hundreds of times over the years. Have another huddle and say, this is what we fucking need to do. Forget Mikel and his instructions for a sec. We're the fucking 11 out here, or the 10 out here, or 9 out here. we need to do this. We need to do this. Gabriel, Marino, Odegaard, something. Fight. There was no fight.
No, I agree. I was looking around. I didn't see any energy. I didn't see any passion. I didn't see any fight. I mean, we got to be honest and say that last week's performance wasn't that much better against Leicester. The difference is that Mourinho...
That's a criticism of Mikel.
Yeah. So
no
maybe today everything just came down on top of us.
He needs to have a plan B. He's you know, similar... It's been a similar story over the last couple of years, as much as it's been very different title races. If you could call this one a title race anyway. Ultimately, plan Bs have been an issue. Plan Bs have been a big issue, and people might say, "Oh, look how injury ravaged the squad is right now." Like I said, we're not in an injury crisis in midfield, but we're bringing Zinchenko on. So it's a mix of bad luck with the injuries and poor squad management in the windows and off the pitch. And Mikel takes a lot of blame in that as well, because some of the signings he's made haven't been of the adequate level. And if we're in a position now where we have to watch money, even though the reports come out and say record revenue, surprise, surprise, I'm not surprised.
You know what, I've got to say, I'm struggling to come up with any words of solace or comfort looking forward or optimism. We've got a game against Forest in the week. I don't know what to say. What's your thoughts on that, looking ahead to that game?
At this moment in time, I couldn't care less. I'll be real with you, I couldn't care less.
Well, you've heard from the man. I've got to say, I don't quite know what to say myself. I'm still in a bit of shock, to be honest. But anyway, thanks, Turkish, for your forthright comments. Appreciate it.